Happy Christmas, it's that time of year for eggnog, and I learned this year, 2017, that apparently I'd been doing my eggnog in reverse ratios of most people. Seems most people pour eggnog and then add a little bit of rum or brandy to it, whereas I did the exact opposite ratio. And so, having tried it the traditional way, I can tell you all you've been doing it wrong. Welcome to Ask the Meadmaker, where I, Ricky the Meadmaker, answer your questions about mead making, mead drinking, mead brewing, and really any question you're willing to send to me. Our first question is from Mikey. Mikey wants to get into mead making, good choice, and wants to know if there's a good mead recipe for trying different honeys out to get a flavor profile for them. He asked if Joe's Ancient Orange was a good one, or any number of the other ones he's found online. Nothing wrong with Joe's Ancient Orange, but you do lose some of the honey flavors because of the other things in it. I would recommend going to our website, grenfell.com, and going to the recipes section where we have all the recipes for our meads available, and starting with Valkyrie's Choice and just experimenting with different honeys. Brienne wants to start making mead, and it's all in the family because her husband already makes mead, but his are 15%, which is a little higher in the alcohol than she wants. She wants to be closer to 10%. She wanted to know how to make very flavorful meads without having to have all that alcohol and all that honey initially. Now the good news is at 10%, you still have a lot of honey in there. A lot of the honey flavor will come through. When you start getting down to the 5 and 6% alcohol range, it's tough to maintain the honey profile. But at 10%, a straight mead should be just fine. She wants to know how to make a flavorful mead with spices that lets the honey shine through. And I would say, try making a mead without any spices, and then, if you don't love it, if there's not enough going on, throw in something like a few cinnamon sticks. Mark wants to know if he can use Costco yeast, ostensibly in his mead. Sure. It's time for a reader. Sazil writes, a very long time ago, I'm really behind on these things. I always enjoy watching your videos. Good, someone should. Here is my current question, which I really like because I don't want his past question. I want him to ask the question he's asking right now. I've been looking into yeast nutrients and trying to find the best one. I had heard that bee pollen is the perfect yeast nutrient. Is bee pollen the best yeast nutrient for mead? Thanks. Emph responded, I've been talking with Ricky a lot about this to figure out exactly which nutrient blend works well, blah, 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 Fermid K, DAP, nutrient trials. Currently, I'm getting great results in quick turnover, less than a month, with the yeast winemakers blend, the one that I have recommended in the past. He uses Go Firm for starters. There's also a correlation he's found between pH level and nutrient absorption. He's looking into ways to test this. So no one nutrient is the best, but Sage also recommends the yeast nutrient blend. This is an excellent answer, and the only thing I would add to it is bee pollen is probably a good nutrient. We have a whole article about that will be linked in the doobly-doo. But it's very expensive, and if you want to go big, might not be your best choice. Just a side note, I am conversational in 5 languages, and in addition to that, I can read internet speak, so I know that emph is supposed to be pronounced empath. I just won't. I have in my hand our last question of the week. I was going to try to summarize this question from Al, but I've decided to do it verbatim. Hi Ricky, I'm making my first mead, an apple cider at 1 gallon, and my wife and teenage children are wondering what the horrible smell is coming from the basement. I see the airlock bubbling and I smell nothing but goodness. My son says it's making his hockey equipment smell? Now, as you may or may not know, hockey equipment has a unique stink of its own. Is it possible there is something wrong with my mead? So, ciders traditionally have a highly sulfurous fermentation. They're not super pleasant. I once did a cider with malt in it and a wheat beer yeast that smelled so bad I didn't invite anyone over to my house for a week during fermentation and a week after fermentation That said, I feel if I say anything more in response to this, I'm wading into a domestic dispute that I shouldn't touch with a 10-foot hockey stick. So thank you for your question. Tell your son to wash his equipment. It does go through the laundry. That's our last question of the week, and I'm going to do a word of the week because I'm an etymology nut, and I wanted to know where the term eggnog came from. And the answer is it comes from egg. You know, the fruit that falls out of a chicken. And nog, which means a strong alcohol. Why nog means strong alcohol is anyone's guess. We know that nog was a strong beer from one of the Anglias. Let us call it the East one. I could be wrong about that. And no one knows why. Maybe it's related to noggin, a wooden bowl used for drinking. Your guess is as good as mine. That's our last question this week. Happy holidays. See you in the new year. Keep sending your questions, and I'll get to them as soon as possible. Cheers.